Welcome to my channel. If you are new, I am so over the moon that you found me. And if you've been here before, oh my God, you came back. My name is Alonda Carter and I'm a recovering Hunbot. And in today's video, we are going to talk about basically the relationship of cult to MLM. And no one wants to come out and say they were part of a cult. Don't you think? It's a bitter pill and it's, a hard pill to swallow. And the thing is, you might be thinking, oh, that could never happen to me. And that's exactly what I used to think. I thought I knew all the signs. Studied all kinds of things. I never imagined that I would be indoctrinated into a cult, but I was. So let's go ahead and get into this cult thing, how it relates to MLMs, and specifically how the Team BeachBody coaching opportunity is a cult. When I think of cult, and maybe this is true for you as well, I think about, like the Manson family, Jim Jones and the People's Temple, Heaven's Gate, and the Branch Davidians run by David Koresh. Each of these notable cults, are collectively in our culture, and all of them ended in tragedy. These examples also relate to extreme belief systems related to religion. However, a cult is not necessarily religious. A cult really has many faces, many facets, and I think we just kind of tend to, associate cult with, religious organizations because of, instances like the ones that I mentioned. In this video, I'm going to provide an overview of the various different types of cults, and I'm going to provide a definition and also review the universal identifying characteristics of a cult and provide evidence of how Team Beachbody is related to all of that. And I'm also going to respond to some questions that are they're out there. I'm going to put all the links in the description of where I got all this information, but these questions relate to past, present, multi-level marketing income opportunity adherence. That these would be good questions for, people to answer, but I don't want you going out there and just like throwing the questions at people. It's not about that, because I really think that the Huns need a much gentler hand, a much more understanding hand than just attacking them and that you're in a cult, you're in a period, that doesn't feel good to them. I mean, think about how you would feel if you ever dated someone that was, kind of a schmuck that your mom thought was just like not good enough for you and she let you know about it. That didn't make you stop dating that person, right? You hung on into that relationship because, hey, you're going to prove this is the relationship. Well, kind of think about that, when it comes to Huns, So let's go ahead and start with the definition. Okay, definition of a cult. A cult is a group or movement that, to a significant degree, exhibits great or excessive devotion or dedication to some person, idea, or thing, uses a thought reform program to persuade, control, and socialize members, i.e., to integrate them into the group's unique pattern of relationships, beliefs, values, and practices, systematically induces states of psychological dependency in members, exploits members to advance the leadership's goals, and causes psychological harm to members, their families, and the community. So think about all of that, take all of this in and just think for a moment about MLMs, the people who get involved with them, including myself, and how that applies to that situation. Just be open-minded. So this is going to be our working definition, okay? And this comes from Cult Recovery 101. Okay, so now I'm going to get into my experience. Okay, backstory on me a little bit, and this might explain why I'm so fascinated now that I'm on the other side of, I guess, the culture, subculture of MLMs, who joins, why they join, what's going on in their heads, and all of that. As a child, starting around the age of 5 or so, I was fascinated with belief systems. I mean, way back then, literally was. Still am. You see that connection there? At the time, I didn't know that's what it was called. I just knew that I wanted to understand this whole thing about religion and, why believing in God was the thing to do. Because, I was just curious. I was like, why do I have to believe this? I want to know why. You know, where's the evidence? That kind of thing. And so what I did as a child is I started collecting Bibles. Now, what I didn't realize because I was a kid is that I was collecting different versions of, of the same Bible. They were all King James versions. Sorry, I just spilled coffee on myself too. I was never really satisfied with, um, just because literally that's pretty much what I was kind of told is that, well, you just believe this. It's just because. And that just didn't, sit well with me. And I was like, I learned very quickly to shut up and just, kind of keep my opinion to myself because apparently, no one else was questioning anything. It was not until I took my first course in philosophy while I was attending the University of St. Thomas here in Houston that I found out that I was not some kind of freak because I really thought that I was. I was like, wow, other people had also sought to understand. They also questioned things, and by questioning, they were seeking to understand, and that's exactly what I was trying to do. I was just, a kid that, I guess nobody really knew what to do with the fact that this kid is like, having these questions. They just didn't know what to do with me. So if you were to say to, your friend who is in an MLM, you're in a cult, I bet they would kind of be like offended, You're just attacking them and their belief, and it's important to them. And most likely they are not aware of how damaging MLMs are. I wasn't. I really had no clue. I was totally naive. For as educated and as smart as I am, I was utterly naive. You'll put somebody on the defensive. And, when people go on the defensive, that doesn't solve anything. And again, let's face it, no one wants to admit they were in a cult. Them's just fighting words. But cults are more pervasive than you may initially think. Cults are all around you. You just may not realize it. Believe it or not, I've brushed up against a few cults in my time. And if I get real honest, which I've already done, I'm going to admit, yeah, I was in one. So the first time that I can remember brushing up against a cult was, this was back in the 80s, and it was EST. It's now called the Forum. And one of my best friends, and if you've been watching me, remember I've said I was a makeup artist. I met her when I was 18, okay? And she and I, oh my gosh, we had so much fun together. And we're still good friends now. Unfortunately, she lives in Florida. Anyway, I digress. She invited me to this presentation at a hotel in downtown Houston. Now, at the time, downtown Houston was not a thing. It rolled up at, 5 o'clock. But I went and she was so excited. And so I sat through this entire presentation thing, and it was long and arduous. And there was finally a break. And that's basically when I was surrounded by the believers. And I was like, wow, there's something up with this. This isn't right. And I was able to manage to get her out of there and, let her know what was going on and just, she didn't see it. Okay. Then as an undergraduate, while I was going to the University of St. Thomas, I found out that my friend's sister had been in a cult. And I don't know which one it was. I didn't ask, but I do remember Josh saying that. May he rest in peace. He died at a very early age. His mom, P.S., she was in the sound booth for Singing in the Rain, and she did all the tap dancing of Gene Kelly's famous dance in Singing in the Rain. And his dad was the host of Whose Line Is It Anyway? Just, kind of a PS thing there. And then thirdly, as a graduate student in anthropology, I lived in the Chicagoland area. I was going to school in Chicago. My personal trainer was a member of Yahweh Ben Yahweh. And I put those pieces together based on what he said. And at the time, AOL was considered the internet. That's what I thought. But, I did my research and I put it all together. He never targeted me. And I guess I just was not, the target audience. I just didn't fit the bill. but he did try to get a friend of mine in it. Because there was just some weird things that happened, and she didn't. I lost touch with her, but it was, it was really weird. And then fast forward to just a few years ago when I became a Beachbody coach. And yes, I'm saying that this MLM fits the bill to be called a cult. And I suspect that if you really examine all MLMs, they will also align to what characterizes a cult. For now, we're going to just briefly examine the different types of cults because, they're not all alike. And I want you to realize that, that there's just not a one size fits all. That's what I had. There's no one size fits all in any of this. Okay, types of cults. So there is political, racist, or terrorist, psychotherapy, human potential, mass transformational, commercial and multi-marketing, new age, occult, satanic, or black magic, one-on-one family, and cults of personality. Cults come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and they reach into all socioeconomic groups, and they can be found worldwide. So these are some examples, and you may have not thought about any of this as it relates to cult, but we're going to look at each one of these so you can kind of see, what they are all about before we get into, and I'm also going to, talk about the Beachbody stuff too, but I want you to be aware that because they are so pervasive, I want to provide a little bit of background on all of this for you. Okay, the political, racist, or terrorist cult. Oh, this is kind of more grainy than I thought. Well, it is what it is. These type of cults are fueled by belief in changing society, revolution, overthrowing the perceived enemy, or getting rid of evil forces. The leader professes to be all-knowing and all-powerful. Often the group is armed and meets in secret with coded language, handshakes, and other ritualized practices. Members consider themselves an elite cadre ready to go to battle. Practices and influence techniques include paramilitary training, reporting on one another, fear, struggling, or criticism sessions, instilled paranoia, violent acts to prove loyalty, long hours of indoctrination, or enforced guilt based on race, class, or religion. And P.S., when I was in grad school, I studied the Sendero Luminoso, the Shining Path, which was the most horrific terrorist group of South America. My college best friend, she's from Peru. One of her friends in high school had his ear cut off, and it was sent to his father from the Sendero Luminoso, Shining Path. All right. Okay. Psychotherapy, human potential, and mass transformational. These type of cults are motivated by belief in striving for the goal of personal transformation and personal improvement. The leader is self-proclaimed and omniscient with unique insights, sometimes a super therapist or super life coach. Practices and techniques include group encounter sessions, intense probing into personal life and thoughts, altered states brought about by hypnosis and other trance induction mechanisms, use of drugs, dream work, past life or future life therapy, rebirthing or regression, submersion tanks, shame and intimidation, verbal abuse or humiliation in private or group settings. Okay, commercial and multi-marketing. Okay. These are sustained by belief in attaining wealth, power, status, and quick earnings. The leader, who is often overtly lavish, asserts that he has found the way. Some commercial cults are crossovers to political and religious cults because they are based on ultra-conservative family values, strict morals, good health, or patriotism. Members are encouraged to participate in costly and sometimes lengthy seminars and to sell the group's products to others. Practices and influence techniques include deceptive sales techniques, guilt and shame, peer pressure, financial control, magical thinking, or guided imagery. Does that sound familiar? New Age cults are founded on the belief in you are God philosophy, empowered through internal knowledge, wanting to know the future or find the quick fix. Often the leader presents himself as mystical, an ultra-spiritual being, a channeler, a medium, or a superhero. New Age groups more so than some of the other types, tend to have female leaders. Members rely on New Age paraphernalia such as crystals, astrology, runes, shamanic devices, holistic medicine, herbs, spirit beings, or tarot or other magic cards. Practices and influence techniques, magic tricks, altered states, peer pressure, channeling UFO sightings, chakra adjustments, faith healing, or claiming to speak with or through ascended masters, spiritual entities, and the like. Occult, satanic, or black magic. These are generated through belief in supernatural powers and sometimes worship of Satan. The leader professes to be evil incarnate. Animal sacrifice and physical and sexual abuse are common. Some groups claim they perform human sacrifice. Practices and influence techniques include exotic and bizarre rituals, secrecy, fear and intimidation, acts of violence, tattooing or scarring, cutting and blood rituals, sacrificial rituals, or altars. One-on-one family cults are based in belief in one's partner, parent, or teacher above all else. Generally, an intimate relationship is used to manipulate and control the partner, children, or students who believe the dominant one to have special knowledge or special powers. Often there are severe and prolonged psychological, physical, and sexual abuse. Practices and influence techniques include pleasure pain syndrome, promoting self-blame, induced dependency, induced fear and insecurity, enforced isolation, battering, and other violent acts, incest, or deprivation. And then lastly is cult of personality. Cults of personality are rooted in a belief that reflects the charismatic personality and interests and proclivities of a revered leader. Such groups revolve around a particular theme or interest, such as martial arts, opera, dance, theater, a certain form of art, or a type of medicine or healing. Practices and influence techniques include intense training sessions, rituals, blatant egocentrism, or elitist attitudes and behaviors. Okay, so now we're going to check out the universal identifying characteristics. And this also, all of these things I am going to put links in the description, like I said. Okay, so this includes milieu control, personal or mythical manipulation, demand for purity, confession, sacred silence, living the language, doctrine over persons, dispensing existence. Basically, there are 8 identifying characteristics, and these are those 8 identifying characteristics. As I review each of these in more depth, I will provide how I view how Team Beachbody aligns to each of these. The thing to realize that these characteristics are often very subtle. And it is not until you have time and distance that you can begin to recognize them. And probably, probably more of it will come out to me as even more time goes by, when I'm really, really able to kind of, think independently. Not that I'm being controlled right now or anything, but, really be able to have that reflection. The fact that they are so under the radar in terms of the manipulation and control is a way to get you to more readily accept all of this, because you don't see it. You don't realize it. And maybe you have been involved in a cult and didn't realize it until I started, sharing all this stuff with you. I mean, it is highly possible. And I'm not saying that you're a horrible person or anything like that, but that could have gone on with you not even being aware of it. Okay, milieu control is the attempted control of everything an individual experiences, sees, hears, reads, writes, and expresses. This includes discouraging subjects from contacting friends and relatives outside the group and undermining trust in exterior sources of information, particularly the independent media. In terms of, Team Beachbody, I would say that there was a pressure to rely on the literature that they provided about the products to basically accept the information as fact. We were encouraged to bring people to the opportunity, but if they were not open to it, then those people are the ones that, are going to hold you back from success. So that, there was this underpinning that you only wanted to be around like-minded people who believed in the company as much as you did. Okay, drinking my coffee. Personal or mystical manipulation. Okay, Charismatic, psychologically dominant leaders create a separate environment where specific behavior is required, leading to group members believing that they have been chosen and that they have a special purpose. Normally, group members will insist that they have not been coerced into group membership. That's really important. And it goes back again to you may not realize it because it's so subtle, and that their new way of life and beliefs are a result of a completely free choice. There was definite expected behavior as a Team Beachbody coach, specifically the 4 vital behaviors. First being proof of the product, the inviting, recognition, and personal development. All of that I see being a part of this. So, to be a product of the product mean you had to do the workouts and drink Shakeology at a minimum. There were a lot of people that, would take like Energize and different products as well. I mean, I bought all kinds of their clothes so I could wear that. You always had to be inviting. And inviting is one of the vital behaviors. That's why you had a free group, which is basically the on-ramp to the paid group. And the paid group is when people are doing the workouts and drinking Shakeology. Recognition came in the form of overall, like an overall leaderboard, which MLMs do have. Also, your upline typically has a leaderboard. Your personal rank advancement, whether or not you're getting into Success Club, going to any of the special trips, any of that. So in turn, as you're trying to, quote, grow your own team and all of that, you recognize people for small achievements, being on Shakeology for 30 days, completing a workout program. I mean, just really anything that you can think of to be like, hey, way to go, you. And then personal development, the back office of for a Team Beachbody coach. There's a lot of stuff there for your personal development. There are various articles and videos to watch. Plus, coaches are always sharing what books to read. And typically on the Monday National Wake Up Call, the coach that's in the spotlight would tell you, a book, at least one book that they would recommend. And so you're always like looking to read those. And heck, I mean, I had some, quote, free groups that were based around various books. And they were books I actually learned a lot of stuff from. But yeah, that's part of it. Okay, next. Demand for purity. Everything in life becomes either pure or impure, negative or positive. This builds up a sense of shame and guilt. The idea is promoted that there is no alternative method of thinking or middle way to that promoted by the group or to those outside of it. Everything in life is either good or bad, and anything is justified provided the group sanctions it as good. I can remember that when some coaches started leading in 2017 because they were going to direct sellers, and I was involved in this. There was literally this us versus them mentality. And I can remember saying that I would bleed blue because I was so dedicated to Beachbody. And bleeding blue is a phrase that, you heard around other coaches. I don't even remember where I first heard it, but I just did. People who left were shunned, and that still happens. When people leave, they're shunned. Every year when people leave, top coaches, and one is Melanie Nitro, she does this. Another is Scotty Hobbs. They will do videos about why people are leaving. And it's always the blame is placed on those who leave. It's never about the system. Now, the ones that left during this time period, they did have teams under them. There was leadership. There was a lot of people that didn't have teams either. But if you have watched my video number 22, which goes over the Sheffield group, that talks about how when new MLMs come into play, that they look for leaders. And so that's why they're going to poach people in different MLMs that are, already have a team or whatever, but maybe they're not experiencing the kind of success they did at some time. So, and these videos that the top coaches or top whoever in any MLM will put out, it's totally PR, It is totally, totally PR. They don't want the sheep to really know that they are being led to slaughter. You know what I mean? And, sometimes I'm going to have to really examine this, is that some of those people who are putting this out, because, they are encouraged to do so by corporate. Corporate's not doing it. They're having their, quote, minions do it, because they're in touch with the people. I need to dig into some more of that kind of stuff, too, because I think that's really important how the leaders are manipulated, and they end up being victimized. And you may not see them as victims, but they are also victimized by the system because they are used by it. Okay, confession. Personal weaknesses are admitted to demonstrate how group membership can transform an individual. Group members often have to rewrite their personal histories and those of their friends and relatives, um, denigrating their previous lives and relationships. Other techniques include group members writing personal reports on themselves and others. Outsiders are presented as a threat who will only try to return group members to their former incorrect thinking. You absolutely have to share your story about, how awful your life was. And, before the Beachbody opportunity, everything was just, Eeyore, you're just down. And Beachbody transformed your life for the better. You share your transformation pictures and proof that your life is better. And yes, you are encouraged to report people to compliance if anyone is acting in a way that they should not. For instance, back in 2017 again, um, you used to be able to be a member of different MLMs, but then all of a sudden policy changed and you could only be a member of one and the people in your family as well. So they basically encouraged coaches to rat each other out. And, and that happened. People were being reported left, right, and center. A secret science, the belief in an inexplicable power system or secret knowledge derived from a hierarchy who must be copied and who cannot be challenged. Often the group's leaders claim to be followers of traditional historical figures, particularly established political, scientific, and religious thinkers. Leaders promote the idea that their own teaching will also benefit the entire world and it should be spread. Yep, Beachbody is spreading throughout the world, and it is about duplicating any MLM. It's all about, being duplicated in this, what the successful people do, duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. And I would say that Shakeology is it's put on the pedestal to be the end all be all because of its ingredients, and it's touted as being a superfood. And honestly, it's like, do I know what all those ingredients do? No, of course I don't, but you're indoctrinated by the various videos, and I cannot remember the guy who goes around the world and gathers ingredients. I'd have to listen. I think it's Darren something. I can't remember. You feel like the leaders possess knowledge that you need and that you're just, seeking to unlock it so you too can be successful. All the while not realizing that people came in early on because they were going to be able to build a team because they had influence. That's something that I've mentioned before, is like that influence. And I really feel called that I need to do a video about how influence really is part of this whole thing. Loading the language. A separate vocabulary used to bond the group together and short-circuit critical thought process. This can become second nature within the group, and talking to outsiders can become difficult and embarrassing. Derogatory names or directly racist terms are often given to outsiders. Okay, think about, rank titles. For Beachbody, it's things like Emerald, Ruby, Diamond, 2-star Diamond, 15-star Diamond, all those Elite Coach, Premier Coach, Success Club, Personal Volume, all of the ins and outs, and honestly, any thing I have done, because when I designed training for the Army, you learn the own language there. There's their own language in instructional design. Everything has its own language. But, when you use the language of the MLM, it's really hard to kind of, translate that into something so that people can understand it, And when you leave and you did not succeed, it's always because you didn't try hard enough. You could have done it. You're just sour grapes. There is a huge push to conceal what is really going on, meaning that the coaches are the customers and that they will never experience, that kind of success. Now, I will say there are some that come in later that do experience, quote, some success, which again, it goes back to influence, and I really need to do a video on that. If that's something you think that would be helpful, let me know. Okay, doctrine over persons. Individual members are taught to alter their own view of themselves before they enter the group. Former attitudes and behavior must be reinterpreted as worthless and or dangerous using the new values of the group. You have to come to terms that before you entered the coaching world of Team Beachbody, somehow you were lacking in something. Basically, you were not complete. Okay. Dispensing of existence, promotion of the belief that outsiders, particularly those who disagree with the teaching of the group, are inferior and are doomed. Therefore, they can be manipulated and or cheated and or dispossessed and or destroyed. This is justifiable because outsiders only represent a danger to salvation. You are encouraged to spend time with those who have the same beliefs as coaches. You get a success partner so you can keep each other on track. And, you kind of look down on people that just really don't hold, this whole belief. I mean, you're just in this bubble. That's really kind of it, honestly. Okay. Now we're going to look at these questions. All right. Again, I'm going to give the website where I got these. There's a lot more questions than what I'm providing, but I wanted to kind of go over this because these are just a few questions for past and present multi-marketing income opportunity adherents, the believers, okay? All right. Was the person who first approached you to participate in MLM a friend or relative, i.e. person with whom you enjoy relationship based on love and trust? Yeah, the person who signed me up, I met on Yelp initially, and she became my neighbor and lived on the same floor as me, and I fully trusted her. That's why I joined. Did the MLM recruiter present a bleak picture of the world of traditional employment in which most people are forced to go out to work for 45 years with only retirement and limited pension to look forward to? I don't know if she did that personally, but I will definitely say that that is pervasive within the Team Beachbody opportunity. That kind of sense exists. Did the recruiter present the MLM income opportunity as a viable alternative to the world of traditional employment in which it is possible for anyone to retire and enjoy total financial freedom after just a few years of concentrated effort? Well, I would say, yeah, she did because she claimed to have made six figures and it's like anyone can do it. And when I was at the Beachbody conference at Summit in 2017, my husband was in the quarter and it was in New Orleans, by the way, and he was talking to a higher ranking Beachbody coach and he was telling her what I was doing. And she's like, oh yeah, she just needs to keep going. She'll get there. She's doing the right thing. So you're always encouraged to keep going because you just need to keep putting in that effort because if you stop, you never know what what your potential would have been. Oh, it just kind of makes me kind of, ill now. Okay. At the time you were recruited, would you say that you were entirely satisfied with life, particularly your achievements, education, career, employment, status, prospects, relationships, social standing, salary, etc.? For me, because I had gone through breast cancer and I was really done with the entire, learning and development, industry, being an instructional designer, just because lots of reasons. I mean, that's an entire video in and of itself, honestly. But my manager did not treat me well when I was going through cancer and then being laid off. All of that, I was like, no, I wasn't satisfied at all. So, I mean, I was primed for something like this because of where I was mentally. Were you ever shown any independent quantifiable evidence, income tax payment receipts, proving that anyone has ever made an overall net income out of participating in MLM? No evidence at all. I just believed. And that's hard for me to admit, but it's the absolute truth. Were you given to believe that MLM schemes are not pyramid scams because they involve the sale of products and or services to customers and end users and offer money back guarantees? Absolutely. Um, I was all about, we got a product, so we be legit, y'all. I mean, that was totally me. I did not realize, I had no clue that just having the product didn't mean that this was not somehow a pyramid scheme. I didn't look into that at all. I just believed, and it goes back to where I was mentally, that I didn't want to be part of the corporate cog. I didn't want to do what I had done because how I was treated and all of that. So yeah, there's that. Okay. Before you signed up, were you encouraged by the recruiter to seek independent legal financial advice? Absolutely not. Never even brought up. Why would it be? Were you given to believe that this residual income could be passed on to your descendants after your death? Yeah. that is somewhere, in the coach back office that you can leave your business to your children. And I wanted to leave something for my stepson so that, they could inherit it and not have to worry about income, that they would just be able to kind of, rock and roll. Um, During your time in an MLM group, were you taught that the exact duplication of a proven step-by-step plan would bring you total financial freedom? Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything is always about duplication. And anytime you do even training outside from the MLM, because I did go to things outside of that, and I did listen to quote gurus outside of Beachbody. And it's all about, yes, just follow this blueprint, just do this. And I probably should do like a video on Ray Higdon and some other people that, MLMers put up on a pedestal. And I may get flack for it, but you know what? So what? I'm just going to call it out as I see it. And I think that's going to do it for this video. I really want to get into how I believe Team Beachbody aligns to Stephen Hassan's bite model, but then that's going to make it this, super, super extra long, and I don't want to, do that to you guys. Alrighty, so that's going to just wrap it up and do it. If you enjoy anti-MLM content, I hope you will consider subscribing, hit the notification bell, and give a thumbs up to this video. That would be so super cool if you did. I appreciate you being here. And remember, if you want there to be a change, it is up to us to share our stories and get the word out. If you have an MLM story, I encourage you to share it. And if you know someone who has a story, please encourage them to share it as well. I invite you to file a report with the FTC. Most do not, and MLMs are counting on the fact that you will not take action. And remember, change starts now.